Actually, a bit of an interesting one, I guess. I mean, I think like plenty of young people, I once dreamed of somehow gaming for a job. You know,
Yeah.
I always played video games growing up. From being really really young, I have a lot of fond memories of even like playing on like my great granddad's Atari when I was like 2 3 years old. You know,
Mm.
um, as far back as I can remember, so many of my memories are like playing video games. And I've always had a massive interest. And I was actually studying media at college, and I was like, I quite enjoy like comedy, and I quite enjoy gaming. And I was like, what if there's a way to combine the two, and dabble in YouTube?
Yeah.
I had basically made a couple of friends who were starting to do the same thing, and you know, it was going pretty well for them. And I was like, well, let's just give it a shot. I was basically at college like 2 or 3 days a week. I was working a part-time job and then making videos, editing them myself and uploading them on the side. So it was a bit of a packed schedule at the time. But yeah, I mean, I did the first year, and you know, had sort of steady growth. I think about 16,000 subscribers in my first year, which like to me is unbelievable. You know, I guess it all just stemmed from a passion of gaming and comedy and wanting to try it. And yeah, I mean, it was 8 years ago I started doing it now, which is
Mm.
the craziest part, I think, because you know, think platforms like YouTube and I mean, especially now, I've more switched to like live streaming gaming instead of YouTube.
Mm.
Um, I'm maybe only, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Mm.
Um, so I do think I've kind of been around not since the start, but I was a pretty early adopter. And
Yeah.
then yeah, things went from sort of strength to strength. I actually happened to have like one particular series that did really really well, and I went from working a full time job with YouTube on the side, and in about the space of 6 weeks, um, I just quit my job and chased the dream.
That's brilliant. What were your sort of like early videos like? What were your first attempts like?
Oh, I mean, just as awful as I think people would expect them to be. And the good thing is too, I'm a firm believer in, you know, you shouldn't be ashamed of where you came from, and you can absolutely go back and still see all my very first videos,
Yeah.
which pains me to look back on at this point. But you know, it's kind of one of those things where like I would never want to hide parts of the journey. There are definitely things that I look back on and I'm like, why on earth did I ever upload that? Like very like either silly videos or just like videos that I know now are like a terrible quality. But
Mm.
back then when I started, I mean, now I'm in a privileged situation where I do have like a really nice PC setup and everything. I was playing on a £400 laptop that I got on finance, that was not made for gaming. There was only certain games I could play because they just didn't work at all. And I think actually recording a video would be hit and miss because sometimes the laptop would overheat and just turn off. Um, and then it would be about 6 or 7 hours to actually render the video out. And then I had probably the worst internet in the United Kingdom at the time too. So an upload of a video was probably about 7 hours. So I would often just have to like leave my laptop on while I went to sleep and hope it hadn't overheated and turned off in the night, basically.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What were what were your friends and family like when you first started, sort of early days? Were they a bit sort of skeptical?
I mean, I think it was a really weird one. I mean, I genuinely have always had a very supportive family in terms of kind of do what I wanted to do. You know, it was definitely a case of my family will always ensure a happiness in what I'm doing over doing something I hate. You know, there was no pressure on me for that stuff. Um, I do think I was kind of raised with like a good work ethic. I mean, I got my first actual job when I was 14, working in a bakery. Um, and like I think my like work ethic I have now stems from having a good work ethic relatively early on. I know myself because my sister is now of a similar age, that you know there's not many 14, 15, 16 year olds who want to go and get a job in there. You know, I only had my weekends free from school and I was using them to work. um And I think because of that, and my family kind of knew like if I commit to something, I really do like sort of put 100% into it. They were very supportive. They absolutely did not understand it. And I think that's still the case now to an extent. You know, a lot of people I talk to and they're like, oh, so what do you do? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to need about 5 minutes of your time. I'm going to tell you exactly what I do. And by the end of it, you're probably going to go, okay. And you're going to have no idea what I've just said. But yeah, super, super supportive. And yeah, it's always just been something that as long as I had like, I think as long as I had a backup plan to an extent, they were kind of happy for me to pursue whatever I wanted. I will level with you. I don't know what it was. I don't know what my backup plan was. At the time of taking on YouTube full time, I was working in sales, and absolutely wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. But I think, like a lot of people, I just had no idea what I wanted to do. You know, I was 21 at the time, and 100%, like I worked hard for it, but I caught a very, very lucky break. And I guess then refused to let it go away after that, because it was the way I took this on full time was very silly. I, you know, had like one really good month, went to work and said, I'd like to go part time, please. And they said, that's fine. And then 4 days later, I handed my notice in. And I was like, I'm going to push it full time. And then I had my 2 worst months ever on YouTube right after that, and thought, what have I done? I don't know if I can pay rent. Which weirdly, maybe I just really motivated me to never want to be in that situation. So I just worked harder and worked more. And, you know, it was very tiring and exhausting at the start, but, you know, it's worked out. I like to think it's worked out. In my opinion, I'm in a good place, and I'm very happy with like what I've achieved in the last, well, I say a few years, 8 years now, which is horrifying to hear when I say it out loud.
What was that first big month then, and what does it look like? You know, what is a big month for you, and what was it back then? What is it now, I guess?
Yeah, so it was interesting. So as I said before, I got 16,000 subscribers in a year.
Yeah.
And then year 2, I got about another 14,000, which is, you know, 30,000 after 2 years. And I was lucky enough to, it's like a really strange story, but, you know, I definitely owe the friends I have a lot of my success, because some of them, when I met them by complete chance, were already like established YouTubers on the platform.
Mm.
And they helped me make videos, which basically, you know, they would say essentially, I'm making a video with this guy, which would then add traction to what I was doing. So I was very lucky in that I was actually just in this, it was my friend Lizzie, or LD Shadow Lady. I was in her stream, and I saw her boyfriend was talking in the chat, and someone said, where do you go to university? And he was like, oh, I don't go to uni, I'm at college. And we happened to be at the same college. So obviously I was like, oh, I am actually at that college. And he was like, I don't believe you, prove it. Like, what do you study? So I did. I told him, and he was like, well, who are your teachers? So I told him my teachers. And then he followed me on Twitter. And then sort of after that, we all started like kind of hanging out and making videos together. So I was in a series with about 12 or 13 other YouTubers. And my friend Ollie wrote this like storyline. We'd never really done much scripted. Everything I did was kind of off the cuff, random. I just wake up and film something and see what happened. And he wrote this big storyline, and essentially, I had 37,000 subscribers at the time, and I gained 36,000 subscribers in a month. So literally just doubled my last 2.5 years of work in 4 weeks. Video views went from being like 10,000 on a video to being like 75,000 per video. And I was uploading every day at this point too. So like my viewership went from being like maybe 500,000 views in a month to being closer to 3 or 4 million views in a month. And just for those who, again, don't necessarily understand like the model of YouTube, essentially the more views you get, the more people will see the adverts that YouTube plays on your videos. So I think a lot of people see subscriber numbers and think that's like the really crazy and impressive part, but like the way that YouTubers actually get paid predominantly is from ad revenue that comes from views. So you could have a small channel with no subscribers, but if it's getting a lot of views, you could be doing better financially, I suppose, than a channel with a lot of subscribers that's getting lower views. So yeah, after getting 36,000 subscribers in a month, the next month I think I gained another 25,000, and by that point I was already full-time YouTube. I'd already quit my job and gone for it. So
yeah, yeah. But it's a real, so there is a, you know, kind of community then. It's like, you know, you kind of like feel like you're in touch with anyone. I imagine there's a bit of a rivalry as well, but how does it work in that sense?
yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing is, I mean, especially now I'm noticing it more now, because back then, you know, 6 years ago or so, there was obviously there was still a rivalry in a way of, you know, everyone's kind of uploading similar content. I mean, I predominantly upload Minecraft content. It's always been a popular game on YouTube. And as of yesterday, YouTube just announced that Minecraft videos have hit 1 trillion views in total on the platform, which is, you know, crazy. But yeah, like the community side of it was definitely the better side. There was always like the rivalry more came from people who were fans of other people, and it was never very serious. I've always been very lucky that I'm kind of in a group that had an audience that were very supportive. There are definitely audiences out there who are less like that. But you know, the rivalry would come from, I don't know, if I did a video, a lot of the videos I did were like prank style videos in game where I'd go and mess with someone. So when they logged in, something would happen. If I did something that maybe went too far, like, I don't know, something got destroyed, or, you know, there'd maybe be a small influx of people who were like, you shouldn't have done that. That's not very nice. But it's like it's an interesting game because, you know, the audience were predominantly younger. So then by the next video, they would just have forgotten about what I did and be, you know, excited that I was doing something with another creator again. So it came in waves, but it was never so bad. But that's not to say it doesn't happen on the platform, because it absolutely does.
What are some of the things that you've found have particularly worked? And I guess, you know, not just sort of the prank stuff, but like the style of it and all that kind of stuff as to what particularly works for you.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've gone through like a really big switch at this point, because I switched over from predominantly making YouTube content, which is obviously like you can record it all and then edit it down how you want and then upload it when you're happy. Whereas live streaming obviously there is no editing, like I'm live. But I think the reason I had some success is that the friends I was with did quite like heavy editing. So they would maybe film for like an hour and a half, and they would cut out the best bits and make a 10-minute video. Whereas I was, and this was maybe based on the content that I also liked watching on and off YouTube, is I enjoyed seeing the process of things as well. So where they might build something and they'll just cut straight to like, I'm starting the build and the build is finished. I would like show the process. So my videos were less edited and maybe 15 to 20 minutes long instead of heavily edited and only 10 minutes long. And I think that a lot of people came to watch my videos to see like, I guess it was almost like behind the scenes or like extra scenes from a movie, you know, like blooper reels and stuff.
Yeah.
It'd be stuff that they wouldn't see in their other people's videos that they could come to mine and actually see the process of, which I think, I mean, I've never really considered it too much, but like looking back on it, I do think that was a big part of what stood me out versus I was in a group of maybe 7, 8 other YouTubers who were already established on the platform, trying to think, how can I get people to watch me at the same time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because people do sort of study it, don't they? You know, certainly my son does. He's watching it from a very, how would I do that?
Yes, and I do think there's been a big switch over to that now. I mean, some of the really popular YouTubers right now, especially in the Minecraft scene, are you know, they're 16, 17, 18 years old, and some of them spend 4 or 5 hours making one thumbnail because they're looking into color theory about how bright colors are gonna make people click the video, and like, oh, what if I put this block there so that it makes this block stand out? And I'll level with you. Back when I was doing it, I was like, here's a picture of my character, here's a picture of the game, that's your thumbnail, we're good, you know? So I definitely think there's been a big switch into it being almost like more analytical. You know, people really break things down, but you know, the success levels now versus the success levels back then, the audience is so much bigger now. To the point where, you know, some channels will get 100,000 subscribers in a day, 2 days.
Yeah.
It's a very, very different environment at this point.
Amazing. So tell us about the live stuff that you do then. How does that work?
Yeah. So essentially this all stems from again, I always enjoyed like comedy. I always thought comedy was like something that I could potentially have been good at some point in my life. But then the thought of like stand-up comedy is horrific to me. Just in case someone doesn't think I'm funny, I don't know if I could take it. So I always like the idea of live streaming, and I've always dabbled with it. Like I would do a live stream maybe once a week, even when I was uploading daily content. And then it was in January of 2020. I'd come back from like a New Year's trip, and I'd just been thinking a lot about what I wanted to do. And I was kind of growing like bored of the YouTube content I was making. But the issue is that I grew an audience on YouTube of like 600,000 subscribers, and they all came for like a specific style of video, which is, the long form, me with other YouTubers thing. And to be quite frank, I'm 29, and a lot of my friends now are also of a similar age. We're not quite on that same grind where we were, getting up at 9 a.m. to film 6 videos and all hang out and be high energy all the time, And I found this very natural transition into live streaming where I was like, oh, maybe I could just do this. And a lot of people think because I had a big audience on YouTube that I'll just sort of bypass the part on streaming where like no one's watching. And it's just absolutely not the case. It's a very strange scenario where people, just because they're on YouTube and they like love your videos, they may never ever watch your streams because the streams are on a different platform. So it's very hard to build it. So January 2020, I was just like, I'm going to start trying to stream on a schedule. So I set myself, I think it was 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. originally, or it might have been 12 till 3. I was like, I'm going to try and do that 5 days a week and see what happens. So I started streaming to 8 viewers. I had 8 average viewers for the first 3 weeks, I think it was. And the next month it was like 15, 16. Next month it was 25. And then this is where it's like such a weird thing, is because March, April was obviously when the pandemic hit pretty hard. And like Twitch numbers skyrocketed. Everyone suddenly turned their hand to live streaming, which they absolutely should have done. I've got a lot of friends who have moved into, they're comedians or they're musicians, and they found a way to transition to live streamed content. And I think because of that, I got very lucky in that my numbers kind of jumped up pretty quickly. So I would say by maybe June or July, I would probably considered that I was like full-time streaming instead of full-time YouTubing at that point, which was an odd transition. So yeah, the way it kind of works now is I actually, well, at the minute I'm doing 7 days a week. There is a high chance it will become 6. Yeah. But I stream 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. every day. And I will say now that's not the optimal time for me to stream. The best time to stream, I would personally say, is when the United States are awake, because that's a massive, massive audience who consume a lot of live stream content. But when I started doing it, the first thing I said to like me and like my girlfriend was, I need to stream when I know I'm going to be available. And I'm not always available at 7 p.m. My girlfriend finishes her job and comes home. If I was then going to work, I it'd be pretty sad all the time. So I was like, I'll just work when she works, so then we're both free at the same time. Yeah. And yeah, so now I stream 1 till 5 at the minute. Like I said, it's every day. I mean, there's days here and there where I'll miss, or I'll do a little bit of a shorter one, but yeah, that's what it's looking like at the minute, is sort of 6-7 days a week. I actually just got my Twitch do like a recap every year. They send you a big thing through about how many followers you got, and I just found out that I streamed for 939 hours in the last year. So I think it works out 40 full days of pure live streaming.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. I mean, how do you, I mean, do you have this sort of like dry opener or anything like that? Like, how do you, or I suppose it must be a buzz knowing that you're kind of on there and doing it. Maybe you don't ever have that worry that you might run out of things to say or anything like that.
No. I think that the best part now is that, like, because with Twitch, it's so easy to like you can curate a certain audience if you choose to an extent. You know, I mean, like the moderation tools on Twitch are really good, and as with anything on the internet and anonymity, there's gonna be some, you know, bad eggs who pop in from time to time. But you know, I have a team of people who enjoy watching me enough that they actually moderate my streams for me. So you know, they'll have the power to stop people from doing things like saying stupid stuff. And you know, it is one of those things where now, like, I genuinely like love what I do. Like, I really, really do. Like, it brings me so much joy. I mean, I know we were just quickly speaking about how I was on holiday for 10 days. Like, it actually like gets to me while I'm away that I can't stream. Like, I'm always thinking about like what I can be doing. And like, some would say that's not being able to switch off from work. And I would agree. But you know, I think the difference is like, I genuinely have still remained so passionate, like 8 years on, that I always get on and like have a blast. Like, I'm just playing games and being silly. And, you know, there's a chat of, you know, I'm sort of averaging around the 800, 900 viewers while I'm live stream at the minute. There's like maybe 300 of them that are actively chatting. So like, they'll just bring up topics or they'll say something funny and we'll bounce off each other for a while. Like, the chat are a massive, massive part of how like a Twitch streamer can carry a conversation. So 100%, it was way harder to do with a smaller audience. But now that I've sort of grown a little bit, I'm in a position where like conversation just flows, and I honestly could probably sit there for 4 hours and they just talk to themselves. But you know, it's great fun, and I genuinely like love doing it. And then I stop at 5 and I'm like, I'm quite looking forward to tomorrow now. You know, it's one of those things. So it's very interesting. It is hard to switch off from.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, sort of all the things that operate around it. You know, there's a lot of theory. We do a lot of stuff on mental health, as I said, and there's a lot of theories that a lot of the sort of mental health charities have now. Well, not really theories. They've actually looked properly at gaming and seen how, while you might be gaming, you're also doing other things. You're talking to each other, you're communicating, you're making connection, and how beneficial that can actually be. Have you sort of found that through the chats that are going on?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I mean, I actually think I remember seeing an article sort of mid-pandemic from a bunch of publications who had previously demonized gaming, and then they were like, "Oh, actually, guys, wait a minute, you can actually do it with your friends," and everyone was kind of like, "Yeah, that's cool." But yeah, I mean, I think 100% that, you know, especially during like sort of peak pandemic when no one could see anybody, me and my friends would get on. It's sort of 3 nights a week. We'd all get on to not film, not record, not do anything for like work, but we just get on and play games for like 3-4 hours. And that was just a massive help because, you know, whilst you can't see your friends, like you're still sort of hanging out with them. And sometimes we'd do nights where like we'd all put on like our webcams. So it was, you know, like we're playing the game, but we can also see each other's reactions and stuff. Like it made it so accessible. And again, I think that's why a lot of people turn to Twitch and to streaming is, you know, partially because so many like job roles were massively affected by things. You know, like if a comedian can't do comedy shows, then like how do they generate their livelihood for the next however long it was going to last, you know? And I'm sure it wasn't as good as what they would be getting from doing an actual comedy show, but you know, so many people have found like massive success in just coming on. And usually what I've found is they play games and then do their normal bit over the top. You know, like I think a lot of comedians have come on and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to play Call of Duty, but while I do it, I'm going to make jokes and, you know, trash talk people in my chat and stuff," like the same way they would like, you know, sort of pick on someone in the crowd at a show. And I just think that it's been really interesting to see it. And obviously it's a bad thing that caused this to happen. But that was one of the things I was most thankful for in a way, is that this job is very isolated already. So in a way, when, you know, they were basically like, "Oh, you can't go anywhere and you can't see anyone," I was like, for me, I've been sort of doing that in my job for the last 6 years. So like, I think mentally for me, it was definitely easier for me to grasp what this was going to be like. And again, just having like friends who are around to play games, and even just like Skype calls or Zoom calls or whatever, you know, we did quiz nights every week to just catch up and, you know, feel a little human again. So definitely played a huge part in like keeping positive throughout the whole thing, for sure.
Yeah. How about looking after your own mental health and outside of that world? How do you sort of like, are you conscious of operating in any certain ways, or any routines or anything that you have?
I mean, I think it's an interesting one, because the question to me, I guess, is very different to what the question would be on like the platforms in general. Because for me, I am like in a situation where I have a very positive like chat experience. You know, everyone's sort of there to have fun and have a good time.
Yeah.
You know, no one ever really gets on me for doing anything. Like, I kind of just get up, play what I want, have a fun 4 hours, and then I can like sort of tune out of it, you know. And I usually, once I'm finished, I'll like go and make dinner for me and my girlfriend, and then we'll watch shows or watch a movie, and then, you know, go to bed. And I think for me, like, it's very little things that can like just make me super happy. Like, I'm very I guess like easy pleased is maybe not the best term, but you know, it's only little things for me. So like, even if, let's say, the good thing is like I don't really get like annoyed at games either. I think that's the big thing, is that some people get very frustrated when gaming. um it's never been something that's ever got to me. So like, I look forward to streaming, have a great time while I'm streaming, and then once I'm done, I like look forward to streaming again. So in a way, like, I don't feel like I have much where I'm like, oh, I'm having like a, you know, like a down day. And obviously they do come, and it's always going to be after maybe 6 days in a row, I'm feeling a bit like, oh, you know, maybe I should just take one. I can probably take one day here, and everything will be fine. No one's going to forget who I am for the 24 hours that I'm gone. But I mean, I think from a, you know, an overall standpoint, I definitely struggled with it more in the early days of doing this. I mean, I think for YouTube, I was uploading daily content for about 5.5 years. So, you know, I didn't miss a day for 5.5 years. And what that did to me was like put so much pressure on me to make sure like I got up, got a video done, got it edited, got it ready to go, thumbnail, title, descriptions, monetization. And then by the time that was done, it was the end of the night. I had to think of what was going to go out tomorrow. Because a lot of the stuff I did, I would like film in the morning and have it up by the night. So, you know, and again, it's one of those things I always say, I will never, ever complain about this job, because it literally is like a dream. But I think a lot of people have a misconception that like, it really is just like, wake up, play some games, go to bed. And you're like, ah, it's so sick. When I was starting out, I was on 18, 20-hour days of work, especially when I was at like college and working part-time as well. You know, I would like finish work I was a waiter, so I'd finish work at maybe 10, 11 p.m., come home, make a video until maybe 2 in the morning, go to sleep, and then get up at 6 because I had to go to college for like 8, you know? So it was definitely way more difficult. But then as sort of I moved on, I was in a position where I could hire people to help with some of the tasks. So, you know, after a while, I hired an editor, and that just freed up the 3 hours I would spend on editing. And then after a little while more, I would get a guy who made my thumbnails, which would free up another hour. So my days that were 16 hours were now 12. And, you know, it sort of got better and better in that aspect. So like, it was definitely tougher at first. But now I would say like, as it stands, I'm kind of like on a sort of cruise at the moment. Like I'm very positive about it, and I can't think of much bad to say about it, honestly.
Yeah. So if you've got a team around you, then you've got, and is that sort of like, who else do you have that helps you with it all?
Yeah. So especially when I was at the peak of YouTube, I would have one main editor who would be like my go-to guy. He would expect a video by like 11 a.m. and he'd have it back to me by 4 p.m. maybe. So, you know, he was like a freelancer, but I would, you know, pay him every month. And then the thumbnail people were kind of like, it could have been a multitude of people. It was maybe 12 to 16 people. And it was more just, who is free? I need this. Because, you know, in this industry, some people, especially the bigger creators now, do like fully hire one person to like work with them. And they're like, you are now on my payroll. Whereas like what I was doing, realistically, like I said, it was like quite minimal editing. It was more just to save my own time. So, you know, it's kind of like paying for convenience. It's the same way, you know, you'll go pay £5 for a Starbucks when you know you can make that coffee for 45 pence at home. But it's convenient because you're out and you want to just get it done. So now the interesting thing is that for live streaming, you don't necessarily need that. I go live, I stream myself for 4 hours, and then the content is done. That's it. But I do work on a YouTube channel that's based around like a Minecraft event that I'm in. And I wanted to make more and more videos because it was starting to do really well. So I recently brought in a friend of mine, Owen, who is like very talented at things like script writing and long form video editing. So we started working on some longer videos. And my friend Annie, he makes a lot of the thumbnails for me now. So like I have a little like 3-person team. And that's like the closest I've ever felt to thinking like I'm like a boss and I have employees, which absolutely is not how it is. But I think that's the closest I've ever been to it. Some YouTubers really do go down the more corporate route. I mean, I have a friend who has 30 employees and they all work out of an office. Whereas, for me, I would never want to go much further than it being me. Like right now, I'm literally in, it's a half bedroom. So there's a bed just like right behind the setup because like, I don't know, family want to come over. I want them to have somewhere to stay. And like, I never liked the idea that I would go and work. I'd take my setup and put it in an office, and then I would go to the office every day, which some creators love. But I don't know. Is the fun part of what I did was like I got up and I went to my bedroom and I played games, and that was my job. And I think that's what keeps it so like cool to me is that it's the same thing. Like I wake up now, I go to the living room, I like grab a water, I wake up a little bit, and then I come through to my office, which, as I said, is literally half a bedroom. And this is where I create all my content. This is where I like do my job, and I love that part of it. I think it's fun.